IRS liens. So I want to talk briefly about IRS liens. An IRS lien, or lien in general, is a security interest in a piece of property. So an IRS lien represents the government's interest in the personal and real property of a taxpayer. A tax lien has the effect of attaching to all the taxpayer's real and personal assets, and in the event the taxpayer goes to sell one of those assets, the government has a claim to that money. Now, in actuality, liens really serve two purposes. Number one, they attach to property and make it really difficult to sell houses, and occasionally it can make it really difficult to sell vehicles or larger items of personal property, particularly those that are registered with the DMV. And secondly, liens have a very negative impact on a taxpayer's credit and their ability to borrow. Now, officially, the policy statement from the IRS is that liens are used to preserve the government's interest. But there is a big debate between the IRS and the tax practitioner community on what the efficacy of liens are, particularly where a taxpayer doesn't have any assets for the government to secure. Because the government likes to say that liens are a necessary measure of preserving a security interest, we would argue that the liens are a punitive measure that really only impacts a taxpayer's credit. Particularly where you have a case where a taxpayer has entered into an installment agreement that will full pay a liability, and the IRS goes and files a lien anyway. That is a particularly hot topic of debate. But an IRS tax lien can be dealt with in one of three ways. You can ask the government to withdraw the lien, meaning that the lien effectively never happened and will completely disappear from a taxpayer's credit. The government can release the lien, usually after the liability has been paid in full, or the government can subordinate a lien, which means it drops the lien in priority to perhaps another lender. So if there is a refi for a house, for example, and the lender wants the government to drop its interest, you can apply for a subordination. Out of those three options, the best option is the withdrawal. The withdrawal takes the lien off the taxpayer's credit. It basically pretends that it never happened, and it moves it forward from there. The way to apply for a lien withdrawal is through the technical advisory unit of the IRS. It is usually a pretty detailed process, and there are some criteria for lien withdrawal. So if the lien serves the best interest of the taxpayer and the government, the IRS can withdraw the lien. If the taxpayer is on a valid installment agreement that will full pay the liability, the IRS has the discretion to withdraw the lien. For lien issues, we recommend generally getting a tax representative involved because they can be fairly technical and because of the pitfalls that you have to navigate. But I do want you to be aware that there are several options for dealing with tax liens. It's not an entirely gloom and doom situation, and that there are numerous options for kind of navigating around them. In particular, you're going to want to be particularly aware when you set up resolution options such as installment agreements that you do so with the intent of avoiding liens. Liens are never a good thing. They can impact a taxpayer far beyond the duration of their liability. And oftentimes when speaking with clients, it's not the resolution that's causing the taxpayer problems, it's the threat of liens. Liens prevent people from buying houses and moving on with their life and funding their business, and so are never really a good thing to consider.